attuned to nature. I hear the winds speak their tales. Crisp autumn leaves fall. What happens to them? Will they descend to the ground? Will they kiss the sky? We know not their fate, only they start their journey. A gentle breeze blows. Kazuha is a wandering samurai from Inazuma, and he has grown from underappreciated to one of the most widely favored anemo units in the history of Genshin Impact thus far. He is beloved in the community for his character design, his aesthetic appeal, and his utility in team lineups. If you're watching this, it's highly likely that you're also quite taken by him. So let's plunge right in and have a look at Kazuha's talents, his utility, and some fun outside-the-box build ideas, as well as his recommended ones. Kazuha embodies connection to nature and the very air itself. With his elemental skill, Chihayaburu, Kazuha whips up the air, leaping into it and trapping enemies below in a vacuum of anemo damage. Chihayaburu can be charged for additional vacuum power and damage, but only the pressed version can be used while in the air. While airborne due to Chihayaburu, Kazuha can unleash a plunging attack known as the Midari Ranzan, which inflicts anemo damage that scales with his low-high plunging values of his basic attack, Gayu Blade Work. So, just that we're clear, in the event you want to give Kazuha a crit build, regardless of whatever guide you come across tells you, this damage going up is his skill damage, and the damage going down is his basic attack. Kazuha's skill has a moderately short cooldown, so you will be using it the most often. If you want to capitalize on both instances of damage, it's important you do level his basic talent. It is not useless. Anyway, moving on. When his first ascension passive, Soul and Swordsmanship, is unlocked, the vacuum of Chihayaburu can absorb a nearby element, allowing Midari Ranzan to inflict additional damage of that element type. Further down the line, Kazuha's 6th constellation, Crimson Momiji, allows his basic attacks to gain anemo infusion for a short time, using the residual energies of his elemental burst or skill. When Kazuha unleashes his namesake attack, the Kazuha Slash, he creates an autumn whirlwind that periodically deals a mix of anemo damage with whatever element it has absorbed. His first constellation, Scarlet Hills, resets Chihayaburu after performing Kazuha Slash, meaning it's very possible for Kazuha to unleash 3 mighty anemo attacks in a row. His 4th constellation, Ozara Genpo, furthers Kazuha's skill spam by allowing Kazuha to gain increased energy while performing a skill or gliding. So even when traveling in the overworld, players who take advantage of Kazuha's increased gliding utility will be able to build back up his energy reserves without much issue. For those of you who plan to build Kazuha for Elemental Mastery, you shall be rewarded with his 2nd passive, Poetic Butsu, which bestows a damage bonus that corresponds to any element he swirls. This damage bonus will be a percentile point boost equal to 4% of his Elemental Mastery. So in teams where Kazuha plays a supporting role to your Elemental DPS units, it's important to stack his mastery fairly high. His mastery potential is increased further when you unlock his 2nd constellation, Yamarashi Tailwind. This grants Kazuha and all party members within his Autumn Whirlwind 200 points of Elemental Mastery after he executes his Kazuha Slash. So Kazuha's most favored build leans heavily into Elemental Mastery. The loadout uses either the 5-star Freedom Sworn or the craftable Iron Sting, and pairing it with a 4-piece Veritas Venerer with 3 Elemental Mastery main stats on the Sands, Goblet, and Circlet. With main stats alone, a level 90 Kazuha with Iron Sting will have 820 Mastery, with the Freedom Sworn's total being about 30 higher. If you want your Kazuha to hit the more or less ideal base threshold of 1000 Mastery points without buffs, you'll need to push for Mastery substats on his Feather and Flower. Mastery pieces are notoriously hard to obtain drops, so you'll usually have to deal with whatever substats you have on those. But if you want to be idealistic, a little attack percent and crit stats mixed with a small bit of energy recharge doesn't hurt if you can help it. Otherwise, if you've obtained your Mastery pieces, your build is pretty much set, and you can worry about improving upon it later. As with all things, it just takes time, and learning to make do with what you've got goes a long way. That 1000 mastery will net you a good 40% damage bonus with a second Ascension passive, so your DPS units within the team will be outputting a lot of extra damage. Coupled with the fact that Veritas Venerer reduces enemy resistance to any element swirled by the carrier, the damage will increase far more than a simple 40%. In large groups of enemies and several elements nearby to choose from, Kazuha is incredible at crowd control and dealing ample amounts of swirl damage. Take into account that Swirl is capable of chain reacting other reactions that also scale off elemental mastery. It doesn't even matter that these reactions don't crit. They stack up fairly quickly. It's easy to see that Mastery Kazuha really is a DPS Kazuha. And for those lucky enough to possess his 6th constellation, his anemo-infused state grants his normal, charged, and plunging attacks a percentile point damage bonus equal to 20% of his elemental mastery. That's a whopping 200% damage bonus. And if Kazuha's 6th constellation was triggered by his Kazuha Slash, his 2nd constellation adds 40% more. So this would more than make up for any lost attack in search of raising his mastery level. This means that mastery is already a really good build choice, but if you've saved up for more constellations, that reward goes even further. Realistically speaking though, this isn't going to be accessible to most everyone who plays Kazuha, and some players might not want to play Kazuha as support, or necessarily care for the support Kazuha is DPS Kazuha mantra. Well, there are some modifications that could be made. As I recall, in the previous trial version of Kazuha, he was given an anemo damage goblet, and you could very well do the same. With decent enough crit substats on your 5 pieces, an anemo goblet would elevate your talent damage so you could see some satisfying large light green numbers. You're still playing a substat game, but a modification of your weapon can help a little in this regard too. The Battle Pass Black Sword can help alleviate crit rate issues, and those that weirdly got lucky with crit rate but suffer from abysmal crit damage can opt for the Black Glyph Sword from the Paimon shop. There's also this oddball anomaly. If you talk to this guy in Liyue Harbor and ask him how the fish are selling, he'll reveal that he was part of the Guha clan, and then he'll give you a sword he no longer uses. It's the only one in existence, so unfortunately it can't be refined, and it is a level 3 weapon, which means that it will have lower mastery than the Iron Sting, and it's doomed to have lower attack values. However, its passive grants 20% attack to the holder whenever they trigger swirl reactions. So, if you're allergic to pulling for weapons, and billets are allergic to you, this might be a good free-to-play option for weapons that skew a little on the hybrid mastery side of things. Now let's suppose that you do not want a mastery build in even the slightest regard. The drop rates are too low for you to even bother, and you want crit all the way. Well, the good news is that the typical attack sands, anemo damage goblet, and crit circlet are still viable options for him. Just remember what I said about his talents. You will have to scrounge up the material to level them all pretty much equally, and that includes his basic talent. If you're okay with that though, you'll be jumping and plunging in no time, doing a pretty decent amount of anemo damage in both directions. The same crit stat weapons I listed before are still viable options for the standard crit build and are usually preferred, and if you want you can even throw in the Mist Splitter. You can stick with the 4-piece Viridescent if you want, or if you don't care about swirl, you can always opt to make Kazuha's Madare Ranzan even stronger with 4-piece Shimenawa, at the cost of 15 energy to get the bonus. The damage bonus kicks in the moment Kazuha takes flight, so provided you have the energy, you will always benefit from the 4-piece passive. With a 6-second cooldown, you'll actually get 2 enhanced plunge attacks. And don't worry about spending all your energy. The energy cost is only paid once every 10 seconds until the damage boost expires. So if you want to just go ham on plunge attacks, you could always do what Genshin does when they include Kazuha as a trial character in battle events, and give him the Sacrificial Sword, for a potential grand total of 3 plunge attacks. If you're really lucky with your Sacrificial RNG, you can pull off 2 charged Shihayaburu in that chain, since the sword's passive overrides the extended cooldown given by the held version of the skill. I'm just throwing options at you. Let your imagination soar. Of course, we're not done yet. If you like Kazuha's plunge damage and want it to be even stronger, we can still throw in the Freedom Sword to build on what we've already started here. The best part is, you don't even have to put it on Kazuha himself. You could give it to a character like Albedo who can trigger crystallize reactions from off-field. Then boom, you got yourself a nice attack buff and a small plunging damage bonus. And honestly, I could go on about how Kazuha's crowd control combined with Albedo's Isotoma make for an absolute dream team. But I'll move on in the interest of your sanity, and that's probably for the best, because this next suggestion is a little wild. You might want to hold on to your hats for this one. You see, Anemo Absorption allows your Anemo characters to deal 2 instances of elemental damage. The first instance of damage comes from their primary element, Anemo. The second instance of damage is their infused element. However, this is not to be confused with swirl. This is different because it is treated as talent damage and uses the character's attack stat when it's calculated. That means any bonus damage the character possesses can also amplify the infused element. We could go with some obvious routes and use characters like Chongyun or C6 Bennett to override every source of Kazuha's damage to maximize the potential of his chosen infused element, but if you have Cryo in particular and happen to have another 5-star character, we can amplify that damage even further. You see, with Shinha, any instance of cryo damage can be amplified with her icy quills. This includes any anemo-based skill that mentions elemental absorption. If you notice that keyword in your anemo character's talent, this trick with Shinha will work with any of them. If you've already caught on, Shinha can use her burst to increase the party's cryo damage. Then she can use her elemental skill to grant icy quills. Afterwards, Kazuha can use Chihaya Buru or his Kazuha Slash to absorb the cryo aura and deal amplified cryo damage. Furthermore, the tap version of Shinha's skill grants a 15% bonus to Kazuha's Slash, while the held version grants the bonus to his Madare Ranzan instead. For this particular crit build, you'll obviously want to give Kazuha a Cryo Goblet to capitalize on this cryo damage. As for the set bonus, you can obviously use any set that corresponds with the element you plan to absorb, but since Swirl is very much a part of Kazuha's abilities, reducing your enemy's cryo resistance might be the better option. Obviously, your circumstances may only allow using the elemental set, and you may find it more fun to amplify Kazuha's personal damage, but only the Viridescent will improve the damage of your entire team. So, still a good option, even if you choose to partake in this madness I presented to you. Our final build definitely belongs in the just for fun category. For those of you who looked at Kazuha's trailer, you may have noticed he wields the fillet blade. If you've been scouring chests in Liyue, you may have picked up quite a few of these too. And you know, since the chasm is now explorable, there's a chance to find a few copies in that part of the region too. Now, some of you have this thing fully refined and leveled and you're thinking, I know this is pretty dumb, but I want this to work. I totally understand. So if we still care about damage, how can we make our fashion sense work in our favor? Is it even possible to use this sword and not have his damage be awful? Technically, the full mastery set from before would work just fine with this weapon. Your mastery level wouldn't be as high, but it would still work since it's not hyper dependent on high attack anyway. It's not a huge loss for the sake of fashion. However, if you do want to focus on dealing damage with the sword itself, look no further than its passive. At full refinement, this thing can dish out physical damage every 11 seconds, and the passive has an almost skill talent level of a damage multiplier. So clearly, we need to raise Kazuha's attack, and we need to increase his physical damage. It does mean throwing his anemo damage and utility to the wayside, but I'm pretty sure you were prepared for that the moment we started considering this sword. Plus, there's what I mentioned earlier, so you can still fall back on that. At any rate, we'll need attack and physical damage. We'll always want the physical goblet, but here's where you need to make a decision about sets. You can opt for 2 Bloodstained and 2 Pale Flame to make all his physical damage, and even the damage of his passive, higher, or you could do something even more unexpected. While I think, at least as far as the sword is concerned, the 2 and 2 set is far better, we could also consider the Echoes of an Offering, which has a random chance to grant your normal attack bonus damage based on a portion of your attack. With plenty of attack and crit substats and the right superconduct team, that could open up a very interesting potential for physical DPS Kazuha. Is it super viable? Not really. Honestly, I have a hard time suggesting the Echo set at all, but it has a unique ability to override low attack talent multipliers and make building attack more worth it for characters that already need high attack in the first place. That said, Kazuha does not have a very high attack, and this weapon doesn't boast much strength either. The only thing it has going for it is its passive, so any build surrounding this weapon is just for the fun of doing it for its own sake, or for a challenge video. If you were looking for serious advice on how to make your Kazuha stronger, you've already heard it. I just included this for anyone who, like myself, enjoys seeing something a little outside the box every now and then. This game is meant to be played for enjoyment, and sometimes doing things because it's outside the norm is good every now and then, to freshen things up. So I think that will do it for this Kazuha guide. I hope you learned something new from watching this, and if you didn't, I hope you enjoyed it regardless. Especially with my mad ravings about builds and weapon tweaks that I don't think many people seriously suggest. It's typically build mastery, double swirl, don't bother with talents unless you really love this character sort of advice. So I just thought it'd be nice to say something a little different after getting through the usual spiel. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Leave a comment and tell me how you plan to build your Kazuha. and I'll see you in another video. So until then, stay tuned.